This is Giles Martin, and you're listening to the Fab 4 Free For All.
Hey, Mitch. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, too. All right, so we only have a little bit of time, so we want to just get right into it, if that's all right.
Of course.
All right, so, by the way, how's your mom?
She's doing well, actually. She went to the horse races last week.
Oh, better than me.
92 and still gambling.
Well, that's good to hear. Glad she's okay in the pandemic. All right,
that's
so
awesome.
Let's get started. I'm going to talk about the outtakes first, if you don't mind, because I think that's on a lot of people's minds, Giles. So,
Cool.
So Peter Jackson had 55 hours to work with. What did you have to work with on this, and were there any specific parameters or guidelines given to you in regards to the outtakes?
No, obviously I had the same amount as Peter. Actually, I had a bit more because we had the multi-tracks, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, there's never really any guidelines. People can basically blame me. I work with Kevin Howlett and Mike Heatley, who are sort of archivists and Beatles experts, and they sort of argue with me about what's important. And I really try and tell a story. I try and tell an audio story with the outtakes. I try and do two things. I try and put outtakes on that you want to listen to more than once. Bearing in mind most of the stuff's been bootlegged, so crazy fans are going to have everything anyway.
Yeah. And
then I also try and show the creative process. So, like, that's where there's quite a bit of, like, Give Me Some Truth being written, or something being written, or Octopus's Garden, that kind of thing. So I think it's like, they're like sketches from a Van Gogh painting. It's like that's what's interesting to me. And then there's, on top of that, the outtakes, there's also alternate takes that are things like Savile Row, Let It Be, Get Back takes, or that kind of thing. So I try and create a sort of, in the limited time I have, because there is a limited space that I can, I get given. It's going to be 3 CDs or 2 CDs, whatever it is. I try and stick on as much stuff as I can. I always get complaints, but that's the nature of the business, really.
Yeah, sure is. So did you need to check with Peter Jackson's team or anything? Was there like a coordination effort going on?
No, not at all. I mean, I'm mixing the film. I'm doing the music for the film, so there's a coordination going on anyway.
Right.
But I also, as soon as I'd chosen the outtakes and the Beatles had approved what we'd done, I sent them to Peter and the team and just said, this is what we're using. I mean, there's things like, there's things that I understand that people want, but they would have filled up the CDs too quickly. Things like the whole rooftop performance in its entirety. I think we should do that as a visual thing, because there's visuals to it. It's
Correct.
like, Mrs. Parker. There's a visual to it. It's much better than listening to it. Trust me, it's a lot better than just having the visual. So that's going to be in the movie anyway. So, without a spoiler alert, a lot of these tracks are. So that's the process. It's like, if I can put interesting elements and snippets of audio on the audio CD or the streaming services, that I'm limited time anyway, why would I then put 45 minutes of rooftop performance where you can actually see it?
I agree.
Yeah, sure.
Giles, this is the 4th mix of Let It Be, Get Back. Each mix has been different. What did you bring to your mix that was different compared to the other 3? And does the material really need 4 mixes overall? I mean, compared to Pepper only had 1 mix,
Well, I had 2 because there's a mono and a stereo.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, you see. So there's only one.
You tricked me on that. You're right. Okay.
it's only one more than Pepper. Yeah, when you say 4 mixes, you're talking about why are there 4 mixes?
Especially for compilations.
Phil Spector, Let It Be Naked, and now yours.
Well, they're all different. Apart from me and Phil Spector, and this is the first time I've ever said that, actually. The other two are different content. Let It Be Naked was deep Phil Spector and different takes. Glyn Johns' album is very different from Let It Be.
Yeah.
So this is definitely the actual album itself is a remix of the Phil Spector version that was released at that time, in the same way that it's the White Album was a remix and the Abbey Road was a remix and Pepper was a remix. So it's the same principle, because that's me mixing exactly the same content. Does it need to be done? It's not. That's not up to me. I try and do the best job I can to do it. And you try and in essence, you try and find out what the hell you're doing when you're doing it. And the approach with this actually is I didn't really realize I'm not as brainy as you guys and don't know any of the history until I start doing. Then I become brainy, and then it all goes again. But with this, I wasn't aware of how what a complete mess and a hodgepodge Let It Be was. You've got and the tapes, because I'm listening to the 8-track tapes, mixing up 8-track tapes. You've got Savile Row recordings, you've got rooftop recordings, you've got Abbey Road recordings, both Cross the Universe and I Me Mine, and then you have Phil Spector's overdubs later as well on top of that. And so in a way, we did things like reamping the strings back in Abbey Road and stuff like that. And in a way, I tried to make the album have more of a unified sound to it and sound less like it's been stuck together. And I think we've been successful with some of the overdubs, like with Long and Wide Road and Let It Be and Across the Universe. To me, the orchestra sounds a little less tacked on. It's not necessarily quiet, it just feels less tacked on to me. So yeah. And also, you know what? I always think that even if people don't like the stuff, we're doing a film anyway. And, I think the album sounds better. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, it does.
Also, the spatial audio stuff is great, by the way. The Let It Be in spatial audio sounds really, really good. It's, I have a Dolby Atmos room at home, a much bigger room than the room I'm in Abbey Road for now. I have a Dolby Atmos, and I played a guy, actually did, John, who was doing interviewing with the EPK, I played in Let It Be, and he almost burst into floods of tears. There's something really, the technology's improved to say, well, you can get people in the room with you, and I think that's worth doing.
Hey, everybody, it's Tony from Fab 4 Free For All here, interrupting our proceedings with Giles Martin for just a moment while I let you know that you have an opportunity to win yourself an incredible new book. It's the Get Back book, newly released, timed perfectly with the Let It Be box set, of course. It is an absolutely beautiful piece. You will love it. And courtesy of Callaway Books, we here at Fab 4 Free For All have a few copies to give away to you. So if you would like to have a chance to win your copy of the Beatles Get Back book, send an email to fab4freeforall@aol.com. That's fab, the number 4 free, the number 4 all @aol.com. Get it to us by October 15th, which is the deadline, 2021. And in the subject heading, just write Get Back, and you'll have your chance to win a copy of the book. So remember, that comes to you courtesy of our friends at Callaway Books and your friends here at Fab 4 Free For All.
No, I was just going to say the album also has such a live feel to it anyway in spots that the Atmos and the surround must be brilliant because you're in the room with them essentially.
Yeah, correct. And Rooftop's great. Rooftop is great. It's a great performance.
Amazing.
So yeah, and also, in essence, it kind of wakens up people's senses. I like the fact that some people hate what I do. It doesn't bother me in any way whatsoever. Embrace it. It's like, everyone's entitled to their own opinion.
Yeah.
But it doesn't make them go and listen to stuff. Opposed to just hear it. It does something for people granted. Even if they love, like, we love the Phil Spector record. How dare you go mix us? Who does help for 50 years, etc. Great. And at least they're going, this is of value, this record. And the struggle I have with music today is it doesn't have any value. There's too much of it going on all the time. Let's just sit down and listen to an album and then switch it off and do something else.
Yeah. Giles, we've tossed out Phil's name a few times, and you were saying, in the same sense with me and Phil Spector.
Yeah, me and Phil
but
Spector.
it's a different situation now because this is the first time that you're taking on a project where I won't say that there's a lack of a sacredness, but there was a sacredness to it because previous projects you were working with the Beatles' original concept. They were there with your dad, dirty hands, doing the mixes. Here is a project that they stepped away from. So you're really looking at Phil's work, Glenn Johns' work. In your head, was there a more relaxed vibe about that, or was it even more stressful in a way?
No, because you still have, Angry Doug from New Jersey. if there's whatever it is still going to go. So no, and I respect the fans. So that's important. I talked to Paul about before. I called Paul up and just said, listen, we're doing a Let It Be film and there's an album. And he goes, yeah. I said, what do you reckon? I mean, you didn't like the album. You didn't like it. Because I said, if I took the string, if I took Phil Spector's stuff off, you'd end up with Let It Be Naked. Going back to your point, Rob. That'd be a remix of a remix. Would be crazy. And he goes, and I said, he goes, what do you think? And I said, well, I just think that we should be respecting the album that the fans love, and we should be doing that. And he goes, I agree. And he goes, can you take the harp down in Long Winding Road? So that's, it's a very simple conversation. So there's less. I suppose, you'd argue that Let It Be is less sacred than Sgt. Pepper because it has less cultural impact.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. But you still treat everything the same. You don't, you still, as my dad would say, you still treat everything with the same contempt as you do with everything else.
Yeah. Well, it's still what's the great comment? It's still the Beatles, isn't it? I mean, really.
But actually, you know what? Maybe it's Stockholm syndrome, but you end up really appreciating the record.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what I think. I like the Let It Be album.
We do too. I think.
So I'm not very good at press, am I? It's like, that's what guy. You like the thing I meant to be selling to people. Imagine someone done a film and go, I was like, I should quite like it. It's all right.
Hey, it was one of my first records, so I like it too.
Hey,
yeah,
go ahead.
I think I speak for all of us. I really, really, really love what you did with the album. We've been having fun. It's and I know Jennifer's here, so we're probably going to get beeped out in a second. But we had an inside joke that we always talk about, that there should have been a whole disc of just the Beatles ordering food, because there's enough of it. And you sneak in the cheese sauce bit, which was brilliant,
and the cauliflower and the
yeah. Well, it's funny. I did an interview with Jeff Lloyd yesterday, and he said to me, he goes, "Do you deliberately put food references in all of the outtakes?" I said, yeah. You know what? The plan is to make a cookbook. Beatles recipes in the future. That's the idea. Or you make a casserole with every single food, or a drinking game whenever it mentions food, you have to drink something.
So real quick on a couple things. Really quick on the outtakes. You could hear your dad on the outtakes, and given the craziness that went on at EMI and with the album, and EMI wasn't even going to give your dad a credit, was it sort of a conscious decision to put him on the album and maybe even a little bit of vindication?
No, you mean on the outtakes?
Yeah.
No, not really. Fun enough. I mean, there's a bit fun enough where my mum hasn't heard it yet. Where George asked how Judy is. That's quite nice. No, there wasn't. It's not I don't really work like that. But I've seen all the footage. I've got 50 hours of footage I've been through, and he had a role to play. I mean, Glenn's a great producer engineer, but Glenn was young, and Glenn's great at capturing the essence of a live thing. That's the Who and the Led Zeppelin is just extraordinary with the work he did. My dad was more of a blueprint, architect guy. He liked to be organised, and Let It Be didn't suit him anyway. And Phil Spector's obviously an artist producer that wants everything to sound like Phil Spector, but brilliant nonetheless. That's the difference between the three producers. My dad definitely had a role in Let It Be, and it's without question. When he turned up, they did stuff. Yep. There was a difference, and so you can't discredit him. He was the person when he would go, no, I'm not saying you were discrediting, but I said one can't discredit him. Right. Like, he'd turn up and he'd go, so what are you actually doing? No. And they go, yeah, we're doing it. He'd go, so what songs do you have? That was just, and Glenn would go, there's one scene I've been watching, because actually I look exactly like him in it. I said to my kids, I was like, I look exactly like him. But my kids went, is that you, Dad? I went, no, that's your grandfather. and he goes, oh, he's good to you, this boy, isn't he? Talk about Glenn Johns, because Glenn's being nice to him. He goes, yeah, but what have you actually got? What have you actually been doing? That was his. And the other influence he had, funny enough, which they obviously felt well comfortable with, but he got the. Now, what are you going to do on the rooftop? What are you actually going to perform on the rooftop? That's what he'd be saying. He'd come with a notepad to Twickenham, and on those days he was those notepads where they'd do the most number of songs. Because he's the guy. He's also the record company executive. Don't forget, he's the guy who's assigned them. So there's a role there. I think that there is that. So there is that, and I'm not trying to sort of force someone, but I think Glyn really was the person that recorded everything and put the band together, but they weren't really being produced. They were producing themselves anyway.
Yeah.
So was it a difficult decision to use like Abbey Road outtakes, given that Abbey Road was just done, and there could have been other stuff like The Fast Two of Us or House of Rising Sun and stuff like that?
House of Rising Sun, that must be on the film.
Yeah. But even The Fast Two of Us, like, because I know there's a few outtakes of Abbey Road stuff. So
why did I put that on instead of that?
Yeah, because Abbey Road was just done. So
yeah, because there's other versions of Two of Us on there, and The Fast Two of Us is better on film than it is on record.
Okay, fair enough.
And it's also, I think the Octopus's Garden thing with Ringo is kind of interesting. And it's it's definitely a Let It Be period, and it shows the empathy that George has with him, and I like that. I like to show the relationship, and you think of Something. I think the Something outtake is good, just because it shows the writing process of going. It tracks me like a pomegranate.
Yeah.
And what's interesting you get from that is you get with George and Paul, them trying to help each other, but they're kind of really not helping George that much. They're going, you'll come up with something.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't a writing team. So there's this, and I can be wrong about this stuff, but that's kind of what I was thinking about. That's why these are on there and not other things.
And if I could say, Giles, the choice of the full take of Let It Be, the alternate Let It Be, is just it's a funky take. You picked a great, it's just got a great vibe. It's anyway, that was just one thing that stood out as a particularly, wow, that was the place for the Let It Be take. So just great.
He sings it. Yeah, he sings it differently. He does.
Yeah.
It's more interesting.
Yeah, great feel.
Which version of the Let It Be solo do you like the best? Because there's so many different versions with the solos.
Oh, that's a good question. I like the one off the album, the non-Leslie guitar one.
Yeah, that punches you in the face, right?
Yeah, and that's the one I remember being a guitar player. That's the one I learned. And actually, I worked with this band, Kuna Shaker, a guy mentioned to me. And Crispin Mills, the guitar player, goes, I want the sound of the guitar from Let It Be. And I was like, well, that's it. And he goes, no, it's got. I was like, it doesn't have an effect on that. Because I was like, I prefer that one. That's the guitar solo I remember.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, I like the single one, but
exactly. That's what makes it fun.
That's why all the multiple mixes, Rob.
Yeah, but no, the thing is, Rob, you're wrong.
It was taken wrong.
It was taken wrong.
All right, Giles, we appreciate some time.
That's the way. We should approach him now on these things. No, I'm right.
No.
I'm right. Everyone else is wrong. That's it.
We are. All right. Thanks again for your time. We appreciate it.
Nice. Thanks.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon.
To see you. We owe you a beer when you get to New York.
When you get to New York.
I'll take that beer off you guys.
All right.
Fab 4 Free For All was edited and produced by Tony Traguardo at Word of Mouth Studios in Westbury, New York.
The opening and closing theme is My Dolly by the band The Badge, featuring longtime listener Jeff Slate, available on its debut album Digital Retro and recent Best Of compilation, as well as from the Fab 4 Free For All website.
Thanks for listening to Fab 4 Free For All.